going to make diagrams for a simple frog design by the late John Smith. So choose rectangle tool, hold down shift to create a square, main select tool, which I've got shortcuts for, rotate, and we're going to zoom in. First of all, we're going to give it this style. I've set up graphic styles, so these are the various properties: colour, width, stroke, how long your arrows are, what ends you have, all that kind of thing. So I've set them up as presets and it saves me no end of time. So here's a valley sign, and we're going to do one not quite to the corner. Press escape. Those lines are a bit too thin, so I'm going to, now first of all what I'm going to do, now that square's too big, so I have to think roughly how big the square is going to be relative to the diagrams, shrink it down so that the line width looks more appropriate for that. If you want to change it, or you fine tune it, you go into properties, stroke, and let's make the space, the gap, a bit bigger, and we'll make the dash a bit bigger. I'm just basically showing how to use this feature. I tend to have them set up. And once you've chosen a line style, and by the way, if you go to appearance, drag the appearance of that line style down onto an existing style while holding down Alt, and you can update that style to the one you've just chosen. Right, now I need to do an arrow folding from the bottom, somewhere up there. Click and hold and drag to make a curve. I tend to make this blue arrow point the direction I want the arrow head. Then I choose my preset arrow style. I'm going to group those together because that's step one done. Copy and paste. I generally find it better to copy and paste. Edit the previous one. Get rid of the things you don't want. Choose the pen tool. Get rid of the bottom dot. So there is the triangle. That's going to be coloured, so I fill it with a colour. And I go back to white, and I always like to draw a little 3D impression. Send that to the back. I've got shortcuts for all these menu commands I use a lot. We can zoom in, and I can take that a little bit nearer the corner. You just want to see it there, something like that. Right, now we're going to do valley folds, folded the bottom corners. So there's the centre, so I'm starting there, and I'm going out at right angles, hold shift to get a 45-degree crease. So that line is now probably not right, so we go to the stroke, let's put it back where it was, 7 and 6 I think. There we go, that's a better one. And then we drew an arrow from there, going up the top, leaving room for an arrow on the opposite side. I like it to go through the bars of the dash if I can. So Jean-Jerome Casalonga put me onto that. He says, your diagrams, the arrowheads don't pass through the gas dashes in the valleys. Right, so I've done that one. I'm going to select those two objects, copy, paste, rotate, shift and drag to rotate them symmetrically, and then just line them up. Yep, that's fine. Double click to deselect, select everything, Control G, group it. The next step probably isn't worth copying and pasting because it's going to be a square, so let's just draw a square. Fill it with pink. Rotate. So it's going to be enlarged, so I'm going to have it larger than it would actually be. It's just something you do. You used to have enlarge and decrease arrow signs, but I think it's fairly obvious now. So that's the back flap, so I need to choose the pen tool, and we're going to put in two top flaps which are not quite at the top. You see how I've set it to jump onto dots and to show me guidelines, so I know with the pink line when it's going to overlap an existing one. That completes that one. So we have a flap on this side, copy and paste, rotate, line up the bottom corners. If you want to get really anal, you can go into wireframe mode, and you can see, you can zoom in like this and make sure that that one is joining that bottom corner as near as makes no odds. Zoom out, out of wireframe, so that's the basic shape. And what's the next step? The next step is to mark the centre. So you can see a little pink guideline. I'm going to do a short crease there and tag it with another line style. That one's not kind of right, so let's go to the stroke, and we want to make the gap bigger. Let's try 7. That's better. So I can drag this out to make sure you can see all the line, and then move it a little bit to the left. There we go. So that's the centre. Now we need an arrow. So we'll start down there, go to there, drag, and put an arrowhead, a double arrowhead on it. So what's happening here? We need to bring that dot out so it's level with the halfway mark, so the curve's even. Bring that back a little bit so it's not touching the sides. Then I'm going to ungroup those and make one of these a white arrowhead. So you start at the white head, fold to there and fold back. That's the version I really like of the repeat. There's various fold and unfold symbols, but I think this one is accurate and simple. Group, copy paste, drag it anywhere. The H for hand is kind of handy. You can just drag things and put them exactly where you want. So you set up keyboard shortcuts for all the things that you use regularly, so you don't have to keep flipping over to the menu. Right, double click to edit, get rid of the arrow, change that to a hairline, and we use that as a reference for folding to the centre. So I'll draw the line first, and that's a valley line. I'll leave it there for the moment. You can set up as many different styles as you want, and that's folding to the centre. So it's, you can guess where halfway between this point and this point is. Excuse me. But I like to draw a little box, and then where the dotted line of the box is, that's the actual halfway. So move it until this line coincides with that box, and then get rid of it. Bring that in a bit from the edge, and probably that one as well. It depends how fiddly you want to get. So now we do our arrowheads. So start here so there's enough room for the head. Go to there, drag. Have to press escape when you've done that on this version. Point it towards where it's going. So that's one done, and we want 3 corners going to the centre. So I'm going to copy, paste, rotate, drag into position, use the arrow keys, something like that. Copy that, paste, mirror it, put it over here. Zoom back a bit. That looks good enough. Double click, so that should be a group now. Copy and paste. I'm going to enlarge this a bit because as the paper gets smaller, I kind of like to enlarge the steps. So this is our initial shape, and we're going to double click to ungroup, get rid of the things here that aren't going to be much use. Then we're going to do a knife. We're going to cut this. In fact, we're going to select both those levels and we're going to choose knife and cut, holding down Shift and Alt to get a straight line. Cut those. No, don't like that one. Cut that. Basically, if you're halfway through a cut you don't like it, you just come back and do it again. Right, so what's that done? That's divided these into separate objects. And this object I can now click at the bottom and choose mirror. Click at the bottom, choose mirror. I can now get rid of these valley folds. Just bear with me, it looks kind of weird as I'm doing this, but get rid of that, get rid of that. Rotate that. And bring that to the front. There we are, bring it to the front. Idiot. Now we start moving things around to make sure they're all kind of lined up at the bottom. Sometimes when you cut things you get 2 points there, which is a bit awkward, but we can live with it. So I'm just going to do this by eye now. I'm just going to drag things into place. Get rid of that one, which was on a background layer. Get rid of that one. So I'm doing all kinds of fine, finicky work, but when you zoom out, you really won't notice the difference. Get rid of that line because that's gone. Oh, it's hidden. Make sure these points are meeting kind of somewhere at the middle. It's nice to see a bit of a gap in between the layers. And then we'll go up to the top and we'll have a look at these, which probably now should be pretty much together. We'll leave a little gap in the middle just to show the separate lines. I'm making a bit of a hash of this, to be honest, but hopefully it'll be useful to you. So that's the next shape. That's nice. So what's the next step? It's to fold these top flaps out. So pen tool, valley, start round about here. You could do this one by eye, this one doesn't need. I'm going to choose the narrow one, which is good. Arrow going somewhere there. You've got to kind of anticipate where the paper is going to be. That needs ungrouping. Select, copy, paste, mirror, wiggle it about. That will do for that step. Select everything, group, copy, paste. Move it down roughly where it's going to be. Get rid of the things we don't need. So we're going to use the cut tool again to cut off this little flap. Excuse me. I don't know if this is the most efficient way, but it works for me. So I'm holding down Alt and going through the lower section, and hopefully that's created a separate object here which I can mirror from the bottom point, and there it goes. Bring that to the front, if I remember which key. Get rid of that. There's still something going on there. The valley line was still there, so I'll copy that, paste, rotate. So it's nice to see a little flap there. If there's a larger gap, then that clearly indicates that these points are not quite where they should be. There we go. This is not to the standards I'd normally do it. I hasten to add. but hopefully you can learn something with it from it. What's out the way? That's angling up a bit. What is that? Let's bring it down. There we go. So that's the next step. I have a piece of paper in my hand here. Getting somewhere now. Actually, I've just noticed from my model that when we add those out, we need to get rid of those because they're not there. So again, I'm just micro cleaning up. Right, so what we do here, we do a nice valley fold, pen tool, shift and drag, choose the line style, it'll do, and we're folding the corners up to there. Yeah, that'll do. Cool. Copy, paste, mirror. My daughter always says, "That'll do, pig," which I suspect is a Simpsons reference. Yep, that all seems copied together. So we can Alt and drag if we want to make a copy. That's another way to do it. Double click to ungroup, get rid of the bits you don't want. So what we're in effect going to get up here is a rectangle. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle. Seems fill it with pink. And I dare say we can lose all of these now. You have to make sure, see that one's going up the top, so we keep that, but we can lose that and that. And I believe that. And then we just, oops, to grab the point and then move it, just hide it behind there, it doesn't matter. Pen tool, get rid of that point. Move it down slightly, it's not quite right. And we're going to fold this in half. So valley, pen, line style. I just move it slightly to the right so that there's an even gap. And this, oops, pen tool. Click. Put arrow height. Move it up so it's not quite touching the edge. This one's going to group it all together. Copy and paste. So we take this box and we bring it down halfway, and then we're going to put another one on top of it. So copy and paste, and then if you use the direct select and just move that slightly to one side, you can then drop it on top the first one and you get that kind of 3D effect. That probably needs to be further out. If you want to exaggerate it, you can pull that up a bit so that you can see. Let's give it a proper 3D job, which means that's got to come down here. I still can't quite see those, so I'm just going to move these points over. Just so you can see it, it's 3D. That's my aim in life. Zoom out. That's a group. And then we just have to draw the final model now, which is usually where it gets a bit free-handy, but you mustn't be scared of that. So you put the model in front of you and you look at one key aspect of it, for instance the back. So I'm going to do that. I'm drawing it freehand here on the basis that I can just adjust anything if I want. That's good enough. So this is going backwards, so we have to show a little flap that comes down there, something like that maybe. Send that to the back, and then go from here back there, follow the line of the back, nip across, send that to the back. Then you just have to gauge. That's clearly not accurate because that length should be the same as that length. So what should we do? We'll pull this over and we'll drag that point onto that point. Probably a bit less. That's the leggy part, and then you've got a couple of arm screws. Actually, you've got 2 layers at the front, so I might just try and show that. Pen tool, click, drag, and then send that to the back. So you can actually see 2 layers now. Reselect the pink, and the arms are coming down here, and they're going back up there somewhere. Send that to the back. And that's pretty much it really. You can then select points and just get the perspective to suit you, madam. We could even bring that down and bring that down. Just rotate this round and give it a bit of joy. I think I'm going to use the convert anchor point to convert this. Convert anchor point, Shift C, to make that into a little curve at the top there. Just a gentle curve. Bring that back to a straight line. And I'm going to do the same here. Basically drag them where they look good, and then the ones you don't want you just drag back to 0. So it's now got a bit of a curve and it looks vaguely as if it's about to spring into space. You have to play with the apparent perspective until it looks right, basically. Then we put a thumb on here, or we can just draw some lines. P, pen tool, just some little curves, hairline curves. Then copy those, paste, reflect. And you could use a dotted line to sort of show how it's springing up. Something like that. I've got some library thumb images I use for this type of thing. Group that. Okay, so if those are all the steps I'm having on the page, then I can definitely have them larger. And I start to position them bearing in mind I kind of know which project this is going into and how that should look. So I'm spacing them out in a little gentle curve. Photograph will go here, and under layers I've got some pre-existing type layers. So you just put those in place, roughly in place, and obviously the words will need editing, but it just saves time. Blow from behind. Whee. So, I don't know what that's doing there. Get rid of that. So that's John Smith's Forgiving Frog. It's called Forgiving, well, it's a forgiving fold because there's very little accuracy required, so almost anybody can make it. and he loved to design models that were very accessible, which is a wonderful ambition. Oh, I've made a mess of this, haven't I? Look, those should be there. And, I like them as dots. Let's change them all to dots. Yeah. So ungroup, select all that lot, ungroup, blow from behind. So there we are. Bit of a body job. I'm not on form today. I've been doing this all day, so my eyes are getting a bit tired. But I hope that will give you some idea of how I use Adobe Illustrator to create my origami diagrams.